Okay, guys, let's talk about the very close play-in situation in the West right now, where at the time of me doing this, we have the Kings, Mavs, Lakers, and Warriors in the play-in tournament, and we have the Suns a half game above the Kings for the 6th seed. The Pelicans are 2 games above the Suns, and they've also won 4 in a row, so I'm just choosing to not put them in here. If this is me jinxing them, then my bad. Lakers and Warriors are the 9-10. Anyway, let's talk about these teams. I started this a couple days ago, so I don't talk about the Lakers' win over the Bucks, but just they beat the Bucks, hooray. And we are going to start with the Lakers, who have had themselves an interesting set of games lately. Look, as far as like big picture stuff with the Lakers at this point in the season now, you would have liked to have seen them get a point of attack defender at the deadline. We would like to see Gabe Vincent healthy to see if he can help with, all that at all. Laker fans continue to be mad at Darvin Ham with, it seems like the Taurean Prince minutes became the big thing for a while after they shifted back to D'Lo and Reeves, starting with LeBron and AD, right? Vando was there for a bit, then he goes down. It's been Rui lately. Of course, LeBron and AD are fantastic, but around that, it feels like whatever game you might catch with the Lakers, the temperature after that game is either the sky is falling or they're about to go on a 5-game win streak. Their recent one against the Kings, you had Fox and Monk cooking on coming around a lot of Sabonis DHO actions, and whether it was Reeves or Dinwiddie or Taurean Prince, or like Fox getting by Jackson Hayes on a switch one time, or going at like Reeves for a 3-point play in transition, and this was with AD playing drop on these. They were just kind of able to cook. A couple plays where like Sabonis would screen for one of them within the 3-point line. AD's got to commit for a second, becomes a roll for Sabonis. He's scoring there. And this was with the Lakers having a big lead to start the game out. Now, in their one right before that against the Thunder, they were just kind of physically overwhelming OKC. Like, just general switching, I thought, kind of slowed down J-Dub on some of his plays. You had some times where like AD would come up higher on the SGA screen, like around the free throw line, or just help off of like Dort if he ended up switching onto him, and they were able to make SGA uncomfortable a couple times. One time where AD's like in a high drop on an SGA empty corner action with Cam Reddish like kind of trailing him from behind, and then it's Austin Reeves hard helping off a Giddey to force a turnover, and then you would have like LeBron muscling Aaron Wiggins in transition, or AD scoring through like Mike Muscala and somebody else trying to help on him like underneath the rim. One time where like Rui and AD are switching a Chet J-Dub pick and roll, and then it becomes like Chet trying to score on Rui, but Rui's strong, and then AD blocks him from behind. So yeah, and they also did a better job, I thought, of just like getting around screens against the Thunder as well. But then you had the Nuggets loss, where in the last 5 minutes it was the Nuggets just executing perfectly as they do. It's just like the Nuggets just kind of break the Lakers in the last 5 minutes of games every time they play, man. But then there was the Clipper game where, LeBron went God mode in the fourth quarter, just making all those threes and everything, and also like those couple of great passes where he like makes it look like he's going to make the kick to like the wing, and so Kawhi commits, but then it's a skip to D'Lo in the corner. D'Lo like doesn't even dip the ball in the three. Like, that was great. But defensively, I thought like they were putting 2 to the ball on Harden, and then from there it's like Plumlee middle of the floor, Taurean Prince helps to steal a pass going to Norman Powell, or LeBron is like hedging on the Powell Kawhi screen to where they don't want to give up the Reeves switch to Kawhi, and so that becomes Powell trying to make a tough 3 over Reeves, who held up well in that possession. And then within all this, they beat the Wizards in overtime, congrats, and they lose to the Suns, and they had like the least free throw attempts they've had in like what feels like 3 years. And so yeah, like I said, it really just depends on what night you want to decide to watch the Lakers. Now, I didn't say it in that whole thing, but they can sometimes fall into the worst habits on offense, which is walking the ball up a little too slow and not getting into anything too specific. I mean, to me, like my 2 favorite things they do are LeBron AD empty corner stuff, and then LeBron screening for Reeves or D'Lo. Now let's talk about Dallas, who did just score 140 against the Pistons. That's huge. I feel like I might have jinxed the Mavs a little bit, because after their win against the Suns, after they got PJ Washington and Gafford at the deadline, I tweeted that it is fair to believe that Dallas is a spooky team, and since then, it's been up and down. I mean, they've gotten blitzed by the Pacers twice, they gave up nearly 140 points to the Celtics, but they also had a better defensive game in their last one against the Heat that I want to talk about too. But like for those Pacer games, in one of them, man, whatever defense they were playing, Miles Turner just kind of had the counter for it, where it's like, Lively is dropping back on the screen, and then Miles is hitting like a mid-range jumper, or Gafford is higher up on a Halliburton pick and roll, and so then it's a roll to the rim for Turner, and the size on the back line just wasn't there enough to deal with it. It felt like in both of the games, Halliburton was able to get a decent amount of like pretty comfortable pull-up twos where, the big's dropping back. Maybe it's like Josh Green chasing him from behind, or he's getting by like Hardaway or Kleba on a switch or whatever. Ben Shepherd went nuts from 3 in both of the games. Nemhard was cooking from mid-range in one of them. you'd have like Jalen Smith getting open off of a TJ McConnell action. The whole defense is rotating. What do we do? In the Celtics game, the biggest thing to me was it was like if Dallas was going to choose to guard, all the perimeter guys on the Celtics because Porzingis was playing, gives them more spacing and all that stuff, then it was going to be like Tatum going one-on-one against like Josh Green or whatever. And then if they were going to bring the help, extra guys on Porzingis, then it's like, oh, now somebody's open. It's a swing to Derek White for a three. Like they were just completely out of sorts against the Celtics and how to guard them. There was also the Sixers loss where Tobias was doing a little bit of like a Carmelo Anthony impression on some of those plays where he's going at like Derek Jones Jr. in the post. And then Maxey was just able to beat some guys off the dribble. Like if he's getting like PJ Washington on a switch or whatever. Notice I'm not really talking about Dallas's offense because we know it's fantastic. I've already said I think Luka has been the best player in the league this season. Whether that means you're going to get MVP or not, that depends on seedings and everything. And Kyrie's been great. 26, 5-5, 60 true shooting when he's been healthy. And depending on what game you might watch these guys, it's just like, well, the other team's going to lose because these two just made every tough shot they attempted. But anyway, then they had that Heat game where like you've got Luka taking a charge on Jovic. I thought Dante Exum pulled off some nice things defensively where he's like fighting around like a Bam screen for Rozier, but then Bam pops, and so Exum's got to like go to Bam for a second, but then he gets back to Rozier anyway. This is all happening like kind of around the free throw line. And in the last like 3 minutes of that Miami game, we saw mostly Lively, Exum, and Kleba around Luka and Kyrie. And Exum's just been solid across the board when he's been healthy this year. I mean, late in that Miami game, he screens for Luka, then gets to the middle of the floor and makes a turnaround jumper, and that basically sealed the game. So yeah, we'll see. Dallas fans are not happy with Jason Kidd right now. Let's talk about the Suns. Now, I just did a video on Phoenix, so I don't want to go super long here. But basically, they need KD, Book, and Beal. That is clear at this point. With that said, when KD and Nurkic have been on the court together this season, their defensive rebounding has been really good. Their defense overall has been really good with those two out there. And if you want to put Royce O'Neal with those two as well, so O'Neal, KD, and Nurk, then their defensive rating is 100. Now, granted, sample size not as large. They just traded for O'Neal at the deadline. Point being is, they're a good team with signs that they can be a great team if they're fully healthy, but we just have not seen the big three together as much as we would like. They've played 23 games together this season. Now, Book, he's been out for the last 4 games. We could hopefully see the real team down the stretch here. And then the last thing is just don't turn the ball over too much. Now let's get to the Warriors. So Steph has an ankle injury right now. The language around it doesn't suggest that they're that concerned, but okay, he'll be reevaluated in like 2 days. Of course, they need Steph. We all know that. But also they have been featuring Draymond at center lineups the most for a while now as Jackson Davis and Looney are coming off the bench. Although it should be said that Jackson Davis did start at center in their last one against the Spurs. And, between Draymond, Wiggins, and hopefully Wiggins' personal stuff is okay. He had a 4-game absence because of that, but he's been back for the last 3 games. But between Draymond, Wiggins, Kuminga, GP2 as well, like the Warriors are able to just put more switchy, athletic lineups out there. And, of course, Draymond's still great defensively, can switch, can guard the post. He might be the best guy in the league at, like, closing out on shooters when you feel like he can't get there, And he has not lost his mind on the basketball court for about, when did that suspension end? Mid-January. And in the last 15 games, they're 10th in defensive rating. And so examples of this, like in the Bucks game they recently had, you got possessions where like Draymond is guarding Giannis. And so then like they try to run the Dame Giannis action and then Draymond's like really high up on the screen to where they can't get that. But then like he gets back to Giannis around the free throw line. Now to do that, Wiggins had to help off of Malik Beasley, but then he closes out pretty well to Malik Beasley as well. Similar play where like Draymond and Wiggins double Giannis in the post, and then Wiggins again has to close out to Malik Beasley. Like you are playing with fire with that type of a defense sometimes. I mean, the Warriors are among the league leaders in opponent 3-point attempts per game. And I mean, the ugly version of that was the Celtics game where they got just torched by like 50-something points. But, then you had like the Raptors game where you've got like Clay starting a possession on Jakob Poeltl, and then he switches with Moody to where now Clay is on Emmanuel Quickly, and then they run another action to where Kuminga now switches onto Quickly, and then Kuminga later on switches onto RJ on the same possession. Or in that Suns game they had a little while ago now where they had to have the Steph buzzer beater at the end, and Book was cooking down the stretch of that game, but like the play before the Steph buzzer beater, the Suns were trying really hard to get Steph switched onto Book, and so they were having Grayson Allen try to screen, and Kuminga and Steph doubled Book, and then that becomes like a swing over to the corner where Draymond manages to close out to Beal and then close out to Gordon, who gets the swing pass from Beal to where then the other Warriors can get back to Beal and the play resets, and then Steph hits the crazy shot on the other end. Like the defense is having some good games, no doubt. They also did a good job of just pressuring KD in that game. With all that said, they did just lose to the Spurs with no Steph or no Wemby. It happens sometimes, I guess. They also got kind of cooked by DeRozan and Vooch in that Bulls game where it's all the DeRozan shots. You know what they look like, and Vooch was able to get a lot of jumpers to fall, which has been a big swing thing for him this year and his whole Bulls tenure, really. As far as the other big picture stuff with the Warriors, I mean, Klay, he's coming off the bench now for the sake of Pods, and Pods has been a little divisive amongst Warriors fans. We'll get to that in a second. But as far as Klay, I mean, well, first, he has still started in the games where Pods was not playing. The theme of this video is basically, like, you don't know what you're going to get night to night with a lot of these teams. It's kind of the same thing with Klay. He could drop 25 on really good shooting and all that one game, and then the next game it's like, you know, Klay, we love you. Did you have to take that, like, leaning three there, right there, you know? As far as Pods, I mean, okay, Pods provides the Warriors drive and kick stuff. He pushes the pace when he can get it in transition. He also just grabs more rebounds than your average guard. That said, you wish he was a little more of a flamethrower from three. I mean, his percentages are good, but the actual attempts come and go depending on the game. And sometimes he can get a little too sort of like, let me idle with the ball and figure out what I'm going to do next, I guess. Now, he can also flow within the Warriors' offense, but also sometimes it's just like the ball might stick with him a little too much, you know? But at the same time, you can find him throwing lobs to Jackson Davis or running these like improv screen actions with Gary Payton where he's hitting him on a bounce pass or he'll be setting screens off the ball. So what he's done for them as a rookie, I mean, he's like the plus-minus god for them and all that. He's still good. Like, let's not get it twisted with Pods. It's just, again, Warriors fans have been arguing amongst themselves pretty hard for the last week or so about Pods, and I think some of them have gone a little aggro. Obviously, he's not perfect. Like, yeah. Now, as far as Kuminga, I mean, Kuminga's a wrecking ball. Well, like, we get it. It's cuts. It's anything in transition. It's a drive and kick. It's sometimes having Steph screen for him. Anything that gets Kuminga going downhill is good stuff, and of course he's also been doing work in the post this season. What else we got? I mean, CP3 is back now. Steve Kerr said that he's going to be starting moving forward as long as Steph is out. We love that for Chris. And if the Warriors can just have a healthy Steph as well as just more time with these Draymond at center lineups, then it could be good stuff for them. Although, again, like I said, in their last one with no Steph, they had Jackson Davis starting with Draymond, so a more conventional lineup there. Now we get to the Sacramento Kings, who I feel like have been the epitome of I don't know what's going to happen tonight for the whole season. We could just look at their recent games and it continues. I mean, I already talked about the Laker game. Their guards were just cooking, whether it was DHOs, whether it's Fox just saying, I'm going to go in a straight line, and I don't think Austin Reeves can deal with me in this transition play. Also, by the way, De'Aaron Fox still shooting 54% on jump shots that are in the paint, so basically like right at the free throw line. Continues to be like a crazy number. And then, of course, Sabonis, I mean, it's rolls to the rim, it's in the post, it's putbacks, it's bringing the ball up himself in transition sometimes, it's all the DHOs, all the plays off of the screens. Sabonis is fantastic. Times where Malik Monk's going to go off the bench, a lot of the time playing off of, Sabonis. Keegan, similar thing. Keegan, some nights are quieter than others. Overall, his overall improvements as a player are real. I mean, everybody was talking about the improvements he made defensively and all that. And sure, not every game he's going to go off as a scorer, but that's fine. Keegan's good. We all love Keegan. You'd love to put Kevin Huerter in a time machine to go back just 1 year. But anyway, recent games, I mean, you got like their one against the Clippers where I thought defensively they were pretty damn good. Now, some of it was we're not going to guard PJ Tucker, basically. But also, I thought Fox's like energy on some Harden possessions was good. I mean, Davion had a couple plays where he was like sort of hounding Harden, fighting around screens. A couple plays where Sabonis would be like high on like a Harden screen, or he would like double Kawhi real quick and then kind of get out of there to either slow the Clippers down or force a few turnovers on a couple of them as well. So it's like, okay, that's cool. But then they got torched by the Heat with no Jimmy or no Tyler Hero. Now, they did fall victim to a vintage Kevin Love performance where he's making like behind the break threes and then he's like doing work in the post versus like some of the Kings' smaller defenders and stuff. But you also had some plays where like Duncan Robinson much improved Duncan Robinson off the dribble and everything. He's throwing lobs to Bam on pick and rolls with Sabonis dropping back, and like the resistance on the screen was like not really much, and like Sabonis is in the right spot, but also there's only so much he can do there. Jaquez was able to just kind of body some of the Kings' smaller defenders too sometimes, as in he's like making a hook shot over Kevin Huerter on a drive, that sort of thing. I mean, Jaquez, he walked into the NBA just having an NBA game and body as well. Now, they did make it interesting in the fourth, but once Bam made a couple of kind of tough mid-rangers, that sort of sealed the game for him. I do think if you want to have more of a big picture look at this team, although real quick, I will just say the lineup numbers suggest that Trey Lyles and Sabonis together is something that they should do more often. Anyway, Harrison Barnes has been like cool, but overall you would love to have a better 4 at that spot, especially with his not like massive drop off from last season, but he's been a little worse than last year. Let's just call it what it is. So yeah, look, the Kings are good. Okay, let's not allow any sort of unpredictableness or weird energy-ness. I'm not even using words at this point that they might have on a night-to-night basis. They're a good team. They're probably not as fun as last year. I will give you that, but still, the top two is really good. Keegan's good. The Kings are good.